Holthouse family that came here in 1947 to buy a ranch that was called the Rancho San Justo. And basically we were here until 2004 when my family sold what was left of our piece.
Okay, cool. So moved here in 1947, and that's the year you were born. Came with your parents.
Yeah.
Where'd they come from, by the way?
Sunnyvale, Mountain View.
Sunnyvale, Mountain View. And are you an only child, or?
Oh no, 4 brothers.
4 brothers.
And 1 sister.
And 1 sister. And you
The
all
sisters passed on a long time ago.
Okay.
But, one of the brothers is gone also, Dennis. Though. But no, I love this area. In fact, that's why it's hard for me to actually move, but I've got an opportunity to get some land, and that's what I can't get here.
Mm-hmm.
To buy a piece of property the size of what I want to buy there would cost me over $25,000-$30,000, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm not ready to borrow that much money.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be able to see what I can do on a small piece of property, 2.5 acres. Right now I'm on one of my friend's properties, Mike Edwards. So I've got a place.
Mm-hmm. So, any memories of San Juan Bautista that really stick out to you in your mind?
Well, I guess the number one would be the year that Vertigo was filmed. I got to meet Alfred Hitchcock, Jimmy Stewart, and Princess Grace Kelly, I think actually it was Kim Novak that was the co-star.
You got to meet all of them?
Yes.
How funny, because you were here during that movie, and right now there's a movie being
I
filmed
know,
here.
in fact, I got to meet John Ritter, Buddy Ebsen, and all the people that were in that other movie, Leave Yesterday Behind, with John Ritter. Of course, those 2 guys are gone now, but John Ritter and Buddy Ebsen. But no, I've been fortunate to meet some pretty nice people, celebrity-wise too.
So there's been 3 movies that you know of filmed here.
This one is actually the 3rd one that I know of. Yeah. See, Vertigo, because of Alfred Hitchcock, I think he'd already had Psycho was out. You remember the famous scene where she screams in the shower?
Mm-hmm.
Janet Leigh is her name.
How did you get to meet the stars of Vertigo?
Well, we were going to church that day, on a Sunday.
Okay.
And they were filming. In fact, they actually had just filmed a scene up in the Plaza Hall. They used it as a courthouse. It was a mocked-up courthouse where the judge was telling Jimmy Stewart that, something was up with his girlfriend because of the fact that there was a murder involved. Because a body fell out of the bell tower.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a woman that I don't think had anything to do with anything. She was just, extra baggage, you might say. But no, Alfred Hitchcock had just made Psycho, and he was gonna make The Birds next.
Wow.
Which The Birds was pretty wild
Mm-hmm.
too. But Vertigo was all about Jimmy Stewart had a fear of heights. Vertigo is basically a fear of heights.
Mm-hmm.
You get dizzy, and he was up on a building and got vertigo and almost fell.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of one of the scenes where he's hanging from his hands at the edge of a building, and he barely escapes to get out of it.
Yeah, it's a great movie. They show it every year.
Yeah.
So you said that you saw them when you were going to church. Did you?
Yeah,
you
it
and
was
your
Sunday morning.
Did you and your family go to church at the mission every Sunday?
Yeah.
At the mission?
Yeah.
All.
Well, we
7
did
of you?
go to the retreat for church sometimes.
Okay.
They had a church. They had a chapel, especially on the day of the rodeo. Mom would go early, and we'd ride our horses up to the retreat, go to church, get back on our horses, and go to town for the rodeo. 7 people. My dad.
Oh, everyone on horse.
Yeah.
Were you on the back of your dad's horse, or?
No,
were
I
you
had
your
my own. I had my own.
So how long were people still riding horses around town instead of cars?
Oh,
When did that?
God, I'll tell you it. Well, we had a sheriff, Lonnie Hurlbutt, that rode his horse in town all the time, and it was the thing where people wanted to take pictures with him constantly, you know, because here he was, the sheriff, and you know, you could talk to him. And
Do you remember what years those were?
well, Lonnie Hurlbutt's years must have been 1980s, 4, 5.
And he was riding a horse in the 80s.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, his horse, and he was the sheriff.
And he would tie him up there in front of the mission.
Yeah.
Or that.
Oh yeah.
So
Actually, downtown, right there at Daisy's, he tied him up.
Okay, is that what the metal things on the sidewalk are?
Yeah, the
that are
hitching,
still
the
there?
hitching rails. Well, there's hitching rails, and then there's hitching loops that they used to tie a wagon to.
Okay.
Okay, but the horses usually had an elevated post or something that you tied your reins to the top, not necessarily down on the ground. You know what I'm saying? The stuff that was tied to the ground was like a carriage or, but if you were riding a horse, you were tied to one of those hitching rails, they call them.
What can you tell me about San Juan Bautista in the 50s?
Oh, the 50s.
You were pretty young.
Yeah, but still, I do remember the 50s as somewhat that Vertigo was part of that 50s.
What about visually speaking? Like, how did people dress? Were there animals roaming the streets?
Well, there were chickens like there are now still.
But more chickens?
About the same.
About the same.
Yeah, and then of course Chapito, that would be, his name escapes me right now, but his name is Hurtado.
Chapito? Is that a person?
He went by Chapito. Yeah, Chapito Hurtado. He had a garden right there in the middle of town where that empty lot is, next to the Ponzini's place right there. And that's where he would sell his produce from, right there.
Oh, wow.
Chapito was called Chapito's Garden.
And he would just sell the produce right there?
Yeah. I mean,
And that's in the 50s? That was in the
that
50s?
was 50s, 60s, 70s.
Really?
He lived a long time. In fact, the guy lived to be over 90, yeah.
Okay, I want to hear about you specifically. I want to hear about Kenny and San Juan Bautista. And you had 4 brothers, and you guys are all good looking.
Well, yeah.
You must have, had good times here. What
Oh,
was
yeah.
it like just
Well, we had-
being Kenny and San Juan?
We had a group of people that had a pool on the Alameda. It was in one of those homes that's owned by the Lavanino Estates. It's still behind there, but nobody's using it as a pool.
Really?
But we built it
Oh, wow.
along with, the 5 families.
And what year was that?
Oh God, we built that thing in 59, 60, right?
Okay.
Because we were little guys when we first started.
So you'd go swimming over there?
Yeah, every day in the summer that we didn't have to work, because we hauled hay a lot. For my dad, we raised hay, and so we had to, do all the work to get it in out of the fields. And anyhow, it was kind of quiet.
Kind of quiet?
Yeah.
What about the rodeo days?
Well, that was really cool.
And San Juan has some festivals, right?
Oh yeah, it started festivals like during the flea market. That was in August. They Well, they tried to keep up with the garlic festival, the Gilroy Garlic
Mm-hmm.
Festival. That one was in also, I think, in July or August. So they started the flea market, which was a 2-day deal where people would come and stay overnight, because we do have some hotels. And anyhow, that was back. The flea market started in the late '60s, that I recall, because my kids were about, I don't know, Amanda might have been 8, 9 years old. She was born in 80. So yeah.
It started in the 60s and
Yeah.
it's still going on today.
The flea market is still on. Yeah. They call it the Arts and Crafts Show, but it is partly the flea market. The Arts and Crafts kind of takes in all of it. People come to sell almost anything that's a craft.
So what do you know about, did you ever go up to Fremont Peak growing up?
There was a peak day in April. Every year we'd go up there. The kids got to play around, dig for money in the sawdust. You know, they had a deal out there with a little bit of sawdust in it, a sheet, and they'd throw some money out there so the kids could actually dig through it, you know, forget change and stuff. I'll still remember. And then they had a balloon con where they tossed a balloon, and my daughter and my first wife actually ended up winning it, because I guess, I don't know, I thought Tammy cheated, but all I know is that Amanda caught the balloon without breaking it, so. But you know, balloon con.
A lot of community type activities.
Yeah.
Humble stuff.
Oh yeah. In fact, there was a band, the local, I forgot their name, but they had an accordion player, a bass player. And, you know, it was a pretty nice group. They had, I think they even had somebody with a guitar.
You play guitar.
Some. I mean, I consider myself able to play, but now my hands are starting to, because of all the years of having frostbite, the numbness is pretty tough on trying to make chords.
And you had mentioned that you got frostbite when you were, I forget what you had said.
Well, sometimes it was just going skiing with the kids. You know, I'd be up in the mountains without gloves on sometimes, because my hands are pretty big, and it's real hard to find a pair of gloves to fit. Mm-hmm. And so when I put my hands into the ski poles, I couldn't get them out.
Yeah.
Because those gloves were too cumbersome. So I started not even wearing them, but that was not good on your hands, because I did get some frostbite.
You had mentioned you had Irish blood in you.
Yes.
And what else you got?
Irish, German, I'm Croatian, which, you know, is Yugoslavian, but there's the Croats and the Serbians. One of my friends is a Serbian, but we're supposed to be enemies. So he's from Portland. I played football with Mr. Stanic. He's the Serb, but I'm the Croat. My grandfather, his real name was Jurinovich, but he changed it to Jurian, Jurian, because of, you know, everybody was changing their names to something that was more, sounded like American. So yeah, he went as Jurian. And then my grandfather on my dad's side, Eberhard Henry Holthaus, was a well driller, a well digger. He would dig wells by hand and then, you know, put brick in them, because they were like backyard wells. And that's how he made a living.
Wow. Did you guys have a well growing up?
Actually, we had springs, because The ranch that we were on was all part of what was the the Flint and Bixby estate. And that estate had an acreage of about 20,000.
Was it in these hills this way or these hills that way?
It was right below Fremont Peak.
Right below. Okay.
We're-
Oh wow, such a beautiful area.
We're right below Fremont Peak.
So did you wander those hills a lot?
Oh yeah.
And all the trees and the moss growing and the caves?
Oh yeah, those caves they're down below along the San Juan Canyon Road. Those are some old
Are
caves.
they natural or are they from
They are. They're natural from wind. Most of it's wind.
Wow, I've been in a really deep cave up there.
Yeah, there are some pretty deep ones. But okay, well, you've probably been in some of the ones I've never been in, because I'm scared to go in a couple of them.
I'm scared to go in too deep. Also, I don't know if this is for the interview, but there's some weird stuff happening at Fremont Peak. Have you ever stumbled upon some weird things happening up there, like dark stuff? People doing dark things?
You're
You
not
ever
talking
hear
about
about
stuff
that?
that's alien or anything.
No, I'm talking about like devil worship, like sacrifice.
Ooh, no, I haven't.
Because I've been up there and I've seen it multiple times.
Ooh.
I'm just asking if you would have known about any of that.
No, not at all. In fact,
Okay.
if I'd have heard anything, it probably would have been through the retreat, because they would have known something about what was going on, because they're totally religious up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know about that, but
Yeah.
so do you think San Juan is haunted?
One night I was walking right underneath the balcony of the Castro house, the Castro Adobe right up here.
Mm-hmm.
And as I walked along, each light turned on in the room and then turned off. And nobody was up there. So I think there is spirits.
Energy.
Yeah. In fact, they have a ghost walk every year.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never been on it, but I might go just because of what happened that night.
Yeah.
And I also at that time got into where I had a digital recorder. A digital recorder will actually pick up the voice of a spirit, because I'm not sure why, but digital recorders will pick up what a spirit sounds.
Mm.
So that's that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I did get one on tape once, and I think it just said, "See ya," or something like that.
Okay, now that we're on the spirits, let me see where my dog is really quick. Stevie! Stevie!
But besides the fact that there are hauntings here, or Native Americans that died,
There he is.
because
Yeah.
there's so many Native Americans that passed and were buried, well, settlers too, were buried over there. 4,300 people were buried in that little piece of ground that's over there by the mission. And it was all because the bishop had sanctified just a small area, but he didn't come back for 4 years. And by the time he came back there, the place was full of bodies. So they had the natives did not want to be buried on unsanctified ground. So they got buried on top and on top and on top and on top. Because when we were restoring the foundation, we had to excavate skulls, bones, and put them into the museum.
Where's the museum?
It's right there next to.
But they don't have that stuff in there.
Yeah, they do.
Skulls?
Well, no, there's skulls. Yeah,
They might have the tools and beads, but
well,
they don't
there's
have
everything in the old museum. There's.
Maybe they just don't have it on display.
That's possible.
Wow, so back when you had to refurbish the mission, it was the townspeople who were doing it?
Well, no, we were. They paid for it by the rodeo. The rodeo was the money maker for the rodeo. Was on for 38 years, and they made enough money to basically restore it and make all the brick and pay the contractor.
Do you know when the state bought the park? What?
Yeah, the Pope. Do you know on a certain time there was a big run on the Catholic Church having a lot of money, the Pope included. And so what the Pope did was he just said everything that's not a church or part of the missions is to be sold to the state of California, because all the missions are in California. So that's how it happened. They sold the property to California.
Mm-hmm.
So
But you don't know when it was. Was that in your lifetime or pre?
Oh no, it was in my lifetime. In fact,
Okay.
it probably was when I was in high school.
So before that, somebody owned these buildings, right? The Plaza Hotel and the Zanetta
Well,
House. Somebody owned them.
Those were privately owned, yeah. In fact, the one I was just talking to you about that had the ghost, that's it's right there on the corner. It's an adobe. It's Castro. The Castro family owned that,
Okay.
and then the Breen family bought it. They were some of the Donner Party people.
Did anyone live in there
Oh,
before
yeah.
the state bought it? What was going on there before the state bought those buildings?
Actually, I do remember that the people came on the weekends mostly. They brought family on the weekends to visit. They didn't live there full time.
Okay.
Probably because it was a little cold.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
They just had it, but it wasn't used as like a bar or a hotel ever?
No, in fact, it was always a residence.
Okay.
And then most all of them had something to do with residences.
Okay. Interesting. Even the big house. So the Zanetta house, like
Yeah.
before, at one point it was their home, and then I
Yes.
guess.
Well, then, like I say, the Pope decided, because they inherited that stuff after the people passed. The church, people gave to the church. And so they had all this property, and they didn't want to keep it anymore because they were considered to be a rich, entity. So the Pope just said, "We're selling it, so, go after it, state of California."
So
I don't know what they paid for any of it, but
Okay.
all I know is it probably wasn't much because those buildings were run down all
Yeah.
over.
It's a special piece of property, though. There.
Yeah, well, I remember because when the rodeo was on down below, the cowboy part, there was a fiesta going on up above. The Mexican people had a big fiesta
In the
up there.
square.
In the lawn square.
Wow.
So that was really a big deal.
Oh, Kenny, were you ever in the rodeo? Did you ever do bull riding or anything like that?
I was in the steer wrestling and the bareback riding 5 different times, yeah.
Steer wrestling and bareback riding.
Right.
What is steer wrestling?
Well, steer wrestling is where one rider jumps off his horse and grabs the steer around the horns and attempts to throw him down. While the other guy is the hazer. He keeps the animal running straight to where you can catch him.
So you need 2 guys.
2 people and 2 horses and a lot of luck sometimes.
And you did it 5 times?
Oh yeah.
Did you ever win?
I placed in the bareback riding twice. I got first and second split, and then another year I got a third. The steer wrestling, I never got anything there, but in Salinas Rodeo, I did pretty good. I won some money there. So.
You're a rodeo man. You did that stuff a few times. You know your way around the
Well,
rodeo.
what it was is when we were kids that we dreamed of being like our heroes. My heroes have always been cowboys. That's what we were doing.
Your heroes are cowboys.
Yep.
Was that from movies growing up? Did you guys have
Movies,
even a
but
TV or-
mostly from the fact that we had uncles and
Your
friends that
relatives.
were rodeo cowboys
Mhm.
too.
Wow.
Anyway.
Cool. I just like hearing your stories about it. Going going there?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a small town, so actually, all these people, like Leonard Catano was the mayor for years, and he's no longer alive, but his Annie is the editor for the paper, one of the daughters. And anyhow, that's kind of how this town was founded, was people like Leonard who did all the work to try to get this thing together each year. You know, they had raffles, they had the Queen contest, they had everything to make extra money for the rodeo.
Well, is there anything else you want to say?
No,
Over
not
here
really,
today?
except I love San Juan Bautista, even though, you know, I'm probably not going to be here as much as I used to be, but I will be back from time to time. I can never get this place out of my blood because of the fact that, you know, I grew up here, and, you know, my little kid brother too, and all the other things that had happened at the ranch. It's part of my life right here.
All right. Well, thank you,
Thank
Kenny.
you. Thank you, Bella.
Thank you.